Many have children who are American citizens. Some are children themselves, brought here by their parents at a very young age. Growing up as American kids, only to discover their illegal status when they apply for college or a job. Migrant workers mostly here illegally have been the labor force of our farmers and agricultural producers for generations. So even if it was possible, a program of mass deportations would disrupt our economy and communities in ways that most Americans would find intolerable. Now, once we get past the two poles of this debate, it becomes possible to shape a practical common sense approach that reflects our heritage and our values. Such an approach demands accountability from everybody, from government, from businesses, and from individuals. Government has a threshold responsibility to secure our borders. That's why I directed my Secretary of Homeland Security Janet Napolitano, a former border governor, to improve our enforcement policy without having to wait for a new law. Today, we have more boots on the ground near the southwest border than at any time in our history. Let me repeat that, we have more boots on the ground on the southwest border than at any time in our history. We doubled the personnel assigned to border enforcement security task forces. We tripled the number of intelligence analysts along the border. For the first time, we've begun screening 100% of southbound rail shipments. And as a result, we're seizing more illegal guns. Cash and drugs than in years past. Contrary to some of the reports that you see, crime along the border is down. And statistics collected by Customs and Border Protection reflect a significant reduction in the number of people trying to cross the border illegally. So the bottom line is this: the southern border is more secure today than at any time in the past 20 years. That doesn't mean we don't have more work to do. We have to do that work, but it's important that we acknowledge the facts. Even as we are committed to doing what's necessary to secure our borders. Even without passage of the new law, there are those who argue that we should not move. Forward with any other elements of reform until we have fully sealed our borders. But our borders are just too vast for us to be able to solve the problem only with fences and border patrols. It won't work. Our borders will not be secure as long as our limited resources are devoted to not only stopping gangs and potential terrorists, but also the hundreds of thousands who attempt to cross each year simply to find work. That's why businesses must be held accountable if they break the law by deliberately hiring and exploiting undocumented workers. We've already begun to step up enforcement against the worst workplace offenders. And we're implementing and improving a system to give employers a reliable way to verify that their employees are here legally. But we need to do more. We cannot continue just to look. The other way, as a significant portion of our economy operates outside the law, it breeds abuse. and bad practices. It punishes employers who act responsibly and undercuts American workers. And ultimately, if the demand for undocumented workers falls, the incentive for people to come here illegally will decline as well. Finally, we have to demand responsibility from people living here illegally. They must be required to admit that they broke the law. They should be required to register, pay their taxes, pay a fine, and learn English. They must get right with the law before they can get in line and earn their citizenship, not just because it is fair. Not just because it will make clear to those who might wish to come to America they must do so inside the bounds of the law. But because this is how we demonstrate that being what being an American means. Being a citizen of this country comes not only with rights but also with certain fundamental responsibilities. We can create a pathway for legal status that is fair, reflective of our values, and works. Now, stopping illegal immigration must go hand in hand with reforming our creaky system of legal immigration. We've begun to do that, by eliminating a backlog in background. Checks that at one point stretched back almost a year. That's just for the background check. People can now track the status of their immigration applications by email or text message. We've improved accountability and safety in the detention system. And we've stemmed the increases in naturalization fees. But here, too, we need to do more. We should make it easier for the best and the brightest to come to start businesses and develop products and create jobs. Our laws should respect families following the rules instead of splitting them apart. We need to provide farms a legal way to hire the workers they rely on. And a path for those workers to earn legal status. And we should stop punishing innocent young people for the actions of their parents by denying them the chance. To stay here and earn an education and contribute their talents to build the country where they've grown up. The DREAM Act would do this, and that's why I supported this bill as a state. Legislator and as a U.S. Senator, and why I continue to support it as President. So these are the essential elements of comprehensive immigration reform. The question now is whether we will have the courage and the political will to pass a bill through Congress, to finally get it done. Last summer, I held a meeting with leaders of both parties. Including many of the Republicans who had supported reform in the past and some who hadn't. I was pleased to see a bipartisan framework proposed in the Senate by Senators Lindsey Graham and Chuck Schumer. With whom I met to discuss this issue. I've spoken with the Congressional Hispanic Caucus to plot the way forward and then I met with them earlier this week. And I've spoken with representatives from a growing coalition of labor unions and business groups. Immigrant advocates and community organizations, law enforcement. Local government, all who recognize the importance of immigration reform. And I've met with leaders from America's religious communities. Like Pastor Hybels, people of different faiths and beliefs, some liberal, some conservative. who nonetheless share a sense of urgency, who understand that fixing our broken immigration system is not only a political issue. Not just an economic issue, but a moral imperative as well. So we've made progress. I'm ready to move forward, the majority of Democrats are ready to move forward. And I believe the majority of Americans are ready to move forward. But the fact is, without bipartisan support, as we had just a few years ago, we cannot solve this problem. Reform that brings accountability to our immigration system cannot pass without Republican votes. That is the political and mathematical reality. The only way to reduce the risk that this effort will again falter because of politics is if members of both parties are willing to take responsibility for solving this problem once and for all. And, yes, this is an emotional question, and one that lends itself to demagoguery. Time and again, this issue has been used to divide and inflame and to demonize people. And so the understandable, the natural impulse among those who run for office is to turn. Away and defer this question for another day, or another year, or another administration. Despite the courageous leadership in the past shown by many Democrats and some Republicans including By the way, my predecessor, President Bush, this has been the custom. That is why a broken and dangerous system that offends our most basic American values is still in place. But I believe we can put politics aside and finally have an immigration system that's accountable. I believe we can appeal not to people's fears but to their hopes. to their highest ideals, because that's who we are as Americans. It's been inscribed on our nation's seal since we declared our independence. E pluribus unum. Out of many. One. That is what has drawn the persecuted and impoverished to our shores. That's what led the innovators and risk-takers from around the world to take a chance here in the land of opportunity. That's what has led people to endure untold hardships to reach this place called America. One of the largest waves of immigration in our history took place little more than a century ago. At the time, Jewish people were being driven out of Eastern Europe. Often escaping to the sounds of gunfire and the light from their villages burning to the ground. The journey could take months, as families crossed rivers in the dead of night. Traveled miles by foot, endured a rough and dangerous passage over the North Atlantic. Once here, many made their homes in a teeming and bustling lower Manhattan. It was at this time that a young woman named Emma Lazarus whose own family fled persecution from Europe generations earlier, took up the cause of these new immigrants. Although she was a poet, she spent much of her time advocating for better health care and housing for the newcomers. And inspired by what she saw and heard, she wrote down her thoughts and donated a piece of work to help pay for the construction of a new statue, the Statue of Liberty. Which actually was funded in part by small donations from people across America.